Commander Alina Vasquez had been alone for 18 months. The research station orbiting Kepler 442b was never meant to be a home. It was meant for a crew of 40 scientists and engineers. Now it was a graveyard of empty rooms and silent hallways. Alina moved through it like a ghost, her footsteps echoing off metal walls that had forgotten the sound of human voices. She remembered the day everything changed. The alarms had screamed through the station. Red lights flashed everywhere. The Velkhari Dominion had arrived with a fleet of warships that blocked out the stars. Her captain had ordered immediate evacuation. Everyone rushed to the escape pods. Alina had been in the lower engineering section when the first explosion hit. The blast threw her against the wall. When she woke up, the station was quiet. The escape pods were gone. She was alone. For 18 months, she survived on stubbornness and recycled protein paste. The station's systems still worked, mostly. She learned to hide in the maintenance tunnels when Velkhari patrol ships came close. She became invisible. A survivor. A ghost that refused to die. But ghosts cannot hide forever. The day they found her started like any other. Alina was checking the water recyclers on Deck 7 when she heard the sound, heavy footsteps. Many of them, moving with purpose. Her heart stopped. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times in her mind. She knew every hiding spot, every secret passage, every shadow where a human could disappear. But when she turned to run, they were already there. Velkhari soldiers filled the corridor, 7 feet tall, bodies covered in dark chitin that looked like armor made of bone, 4 arms each, eyes that glowed with soft blue light. They moved with the precision of hunters who had already caught their prey. Alina reached for the knife at her belt. It was a small thing, meant for cutting cables and opening packages. Against these creatures, it was nothing. But she would not go down without a fight. The lead soldier raised a weapon she did not recognize. There was a flash of white light. Then darkness. Alina woke in chains. Not chains exactly. Bands of purple energy wrapped around her wrists and ankles. They hummed softly against her skin. She was lying on a hard surface in a room made of black metal. No windows, 1 door. The air smelled strange, like copper and flowers. She tried to move. The energy bands tightened. She stopped trying. For hours, nothing happened. She lay there, counting her breaths, trying to slow her racing heart. She was a prisoner of the Velkhari Dominion. The same Dominion that had been at war with humanity for 11 years. The same Dominion that had destroyed colonies, shattered fleets, killed millions. That she expected torture, interrogation, a slow and painful death broadcast across the galaxy as propaganda. Humans had seen such broadcasts before. The Dominion believed in making examples. But when the door finally opened, no torturer entered. Instead, 2 soldiers lifted her to her feet and marched her through corridors that stretched endlessly in every direction. The ship she was on was massive, bigger than anything she had ever seen. The hallways were wide enough for giants, and the ceilings disappeared into shadow above her head. They walked for what felt like hours. Alina's legs burned. Her throat was dry, but she refused to stumble. She refused to show weakness. Finally, they reached a hangar bay. A smaller ship waited there, sleek and silver. The soldiers put her inside. The door closed, and the ship began to move. Through a small window, Alina watched the massive carrier ship shrink behind them. Then she saw what it really was. Not just a ship. A vessel the size of a small moon, covered in towers and spires, and weapons that pointed at the stars like angry fingers. Where were they taking her? The journey lasted 6 days. Alina was given food and water. The food was strange, purple cubes that tasted like nothing. The water was warm and slightly sweet. She ate and drank because she needed strength. She needed to be ready for whatever came next. Through her window, she watched the galaxy pass by. She saw planets that burned with orange fire. She saw the wreckage of human ships floating in the void, their hulls torn open like broken eggs. She saw Velkhari stations orbiting conquered worlds, their lights glittering like cold stars. Humanity was losing this war. She had known that before, but seeing it with her own eyes made it real in a way reports never could. On the 6th day, the ship slowed. Alina pressed her face against the window and saw something that stole her breath. A planet covered in silver and gold. Cities that stretched across entire continents. Towers that reached beyond the atmosphere. Ships moving in endless streams. Like blood flowing through veins of light, the throne world of the Valkyrie, Dominion. She had seen pictures in military briefings, blurry images captured by long-range probes, but the reality was beyond anything she had imagined. This was the heart of an empire that spanned 1,000 star systems, the seat of power for a civilization that had existed for 10,000 years, and they were taking her to its center. The ship descended through layers of clouds and atmosphere. It passed through security checkpoints where weapons scanned every molecule of its hull. It flew over cities where millions of Valkyrie lived their lives, never looking up at the tiny vessel carrying a human prisoner. Finally, it landed at the base of the largest structure Alina had ever seen, a spire of black crystal that rose so high its top was hidden by clouds, the Spire of Eternity, home of the Eternal. Queen, the throne room was made of light. That was Alina's first thought as the soldiers dragged her through doors that stood 50 feet tall. The walls glowed with soft golden light. The floor was polished crystal that reflected everything like a mirror. The ceiling was so high above that she could not see it at all. And at the far end of the room, on a throne carved from a single massive gemstone, sat the queen, Cythera the Undying. Alina had heard stories about her. Every human had. She was the monster that commanded the Dominion's armies, the demon that had ordered the destruction of Earth's first colony, the ancient evil that had ruled her empire for 4,000 years. But the creature on the throne did not look like a monster. She was tall and slender. Her chiton was not the dark color of her soldiers, but a pale silver that seemed to glow from within. Her forearms were folded gracefully in her lap. Her eyes were large and deep, filled with colors that shifted like oil on water. She looked old, not in body, but in spirit. There was a weight in her gaze that spoke of centuries, of millennia, of time beyond human understanding. The soldiers forced Alina to her knees. Her heart pounded against her ribs. This was the end. This was where she died. But then the queen spoke. Her voice was soft and musical, and she spoke in perfect English. "Leave us," the soldiers hesitated. One of them stepped forward. "My queen, the human, is dangerous." "We should not," I said, "leave us." The command was quiet, but it filled the room like thunder. The soldiers bowed and retreated. The great doors closed behind them with a sound, like mountains falling. Alina was alone with the queen of the Valkyrie Dominion. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Cythera studied Alina with those ancient, shifting eyes. Alina stared back, refusing to look away. If she was going to die, she would die without fear. Finally, the queen rose from her throne. She descended the crystal steps, slowly, gracefully. Each movement was precise and controlled. She stopped just a few feet from where Alina knelt. "I have been searching for a human for a very long time, Commander Vasquez," she said. "Your species is rare in this part of the galaxy, and you are exactly what I need." Alina's voice was rough from days of silence. "What do you want from me?" The queen tilted her head. Something like a smile crossed her alien features. But it was not a cruel smile. It was sad, tired, ancient. "I need you to teach me something that no Valkyrie can understand," she said. "Something only humans know." Alina waited. Her chains hummed against her wrists. The queen leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I need you to teach me how to die." Alina stared at the queen. She was certain she had heard wrong. "You want me to teach you? How to die?" Cythera nodded slowly. Her silver chiton caught the golden light of the throne room. Her eyes held no anger, no cruelty, only exhaustion, a tiredness so deep it seemed to reach across centuries. "I know this sounds strange to you," the queen said. "Please let me explain." She waved one of her 4 hands. The energy chains around Alina's wrists dissolved into nothing. Alina stumbled, but caught herself. She was free, but she did not run. Where would she go? She was in the heart of enemy territory, surrounded by millions of soldiers, and besides, she was curious. Cythera turned and walked toward a side door that Alina had not noticed before. It was small, almost hidden in the glowing wall. The queen looked back over her shoulder. "Come with me. What I must tell you cannot be spoken in this room. There are too many ears in the walls of power." Alina hesitated for only a moment. Then she followed. The queen's private chambers were nothing like the throne room, where the throne room was vast and bright and designed to impress. These rooms were small and quiet and simple. The walls were dark blue, like the deep ocean. Soft lights floated in the air like captured stars. There were cushions on the floor, low tables, shelves filled with objects Alina did not recognize. It felt like a home, a real home, not a palace for a god queen. Cythera gestured for Alina to sit. Alina lowered herself onto a cushion, her muscles tense and ready. The queen sat across from her, folding her forearms in her lap. 4,000 years ago, Cythera began, I was young. I was afraid. My species lives for 300 years, naturally. That seemed like such a short time to me. I wanted more. She paused, her shifting eyes growing distant with memory. My scientists were the greatest in the galaxy. I commanded them to find a way to extend my life. They worked for decades, and finally, they succeeded. Alina listened in silence. She had never heard any of this. Human intelligence knew almost nothing about the Queen beyond her military conquests. They wove my consciousness into a quantum lattice, Cythera continued. They created backup copies of my mind stored in hidden servers across the Empire. They made my body capable of regenerating from any wound, any disease, any damage. She looked down at her hands, silver and elegant and eternal. They made me immortal. Alina understood the words, but she could not understand what they truly meant. For 1,000 years, it was a number too large to hold in her mind. At first I was happy, the Queen said. I had endless time to learn, to build, to create. I watched my empire grow. I saw wonders that no mortal eyes could see. I thought I had been given the greatest gift possible. Her voice grew heavy with pain. I was wrong. Cythera rose and walked to one of the shelves. She picked up a small object. It was a flower, preserved somehow, its petals still soft and pink after what must have been centuries. My daughter gave this to me, she said quietly. She picked it from the gardens of my summer palace. She was 7 years old. She told me it was the most beautiful flower in the world, and she wanted her mother to have it. Alina saw the Queen's hands tremble slightly. She died 200 years later. Old age, surrounded by her own children and grandchildren. Cythera placed the flower back on the shelf with infinite care. I watched her grow old while I stayed the same. I held her hand as she took her last breath. And then I did the same for her children, and their children, and their children after that. She turned to face Alina. For the first time, Alina saw tears in those alien eyes. They were silver, like liquid metal. 13 generations, Commander. I have buried 13 generations of my own family. I have watched every friend grow old and die. Every lover, every companion, everyone I have ever cared about has turned to dust while I remain. Alina felt something shift in her chest. It was pity. She had not expected to feel pity for the ruler of humanity's greatest enemy. I am sorry, she said. The words felt small, useless. Cythera shook her head. You do not need to apologize. This is not your burden, it is mine, and I have carried it for far too long. The Queen returned to her cushion. She sat heavily, as if the weight of millennia pressed down on her shoulders. I have tried to end my existence, she admitted. Many times, I have tried every method possible, but my scientists designed my immortality too well. She held up one of her hands. Slowly, deliberately, she pressed a sharp claw against her palm. Silver blood welled up, but even as Alina watched, the wound closed. The skin healed. In seconds, there was no mark at all. My body repairs itself from any injury, Cythera said. If I am destroyed completely, my consciousness transfers to a backup system, and a new body is grown. If I try to delete the backups, security protocols activate and stop me. My own survival systems treat death as a malfunction to be corrected. She laughed, but there was no humor in the sound, only bitterness. I am a prisoner of my own immortality. Alina tried to imagine it. Living forever, watching everyone you love die, wanting to rest but being unable to. The thought made her shiver. Why do you need a human? She asked. Surely there must be Valkyrie who could help you. Cythera shook her head. My people cannot help me. It is not possible for them. You see, the Valkyrie have a biological imperative. We are programmed at the genetic level to fight death with every part of our being. The very thought of accepting death causes us physical pain. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. But humans are different. My scientists have studied your species for years. They have found something remarkable, something that exists in no other species we have ever encountered." "What?" Alina asked. "Acceptance." The word hung in the air between them. "I do not understand this concept," Cythera admitted. "I have read about it. I have watched recordings of humans facing death. An old woman holding her family's hands and smiling as she passes away. A soldier making peace with his end. A dying man telling jokes to comfort those around him." She spread her hands in a gesture of confusion. "How is this possible? How can any creature face the end of its existence and not fight with every breath? How can you let go?" Alina was silent for a long moment. She had never thought about it this way. Death was simply part of life for humans. Everyone died eventually. It was sad, yes. Painful, yes. But it was also natural, normal, expected. "I do not know how to explain it," she said honestly. "It is just how we are." "Then teach me," Cythera said. Her voice was desperate now, pleading. "Teach me how to accept an ending. Teach me how to find peace with death. Free me from this endless existence." She reached out and took Elena's hands in her own. Her skin was cool and smooth, like polished stone. "Help me, Commander Vasquez, please. I have been searching for someone who could understand for centuries. You are the first human I have been able to capture alive. You may be my only hope." Elena looked into those ancient, exhausted eyes. She saw pain there, loneliness, a suffering that stretched across millennia. And she saw something else, sincerity. "What do I get in return?" she asked quietly. It seemed wrong to bargain at a moment like this, but she was still a soldier, still human, still thinking of her people. Cythera did not hesitate. "Teach me what I need to know," she said, "and I will give your species the galaxy." Alina did not know how to teach someone to die. She lay awake that first night in the chambers Cythera had given her. The room was comfortable. Soft bed, clean clothes, food that actually tasted like food. It was better than anything she had experienced in 18 months on the abandoned station, but her mind would not rest. How do you explain mortality to an immortal? How do you teach acceptance to someone whose very biology screams against it? Alina was a soldier, an engineer. She fixed machines and fought battles. She was not a philosopher. She was not a teacher, but she had made a deal. And the prize was too important to fail. The galaxy, peace for humanity, an end to a war that had killed millions. She would find a way. The lessons began the next morning. Thara came to Elena's chambers as the artificial sun rose outside the window. The queen wore simple robes instead of her royal garments. She looked almost ordinary, almost like a person instead of a legend. "I am ready to learn," she said. Alina had spent the night thinking. She had realized something important. Cythera did not need a method for dying. Her body would not allow that anyway. What she needed was something deeper. A way of thinking, a philosophy. "I cannot teach you how to die," Alina said honestly, "but I can teach you how humans think about death. Maybe that will help?" Cythera nodded. "Where do we begin?" Alina thought about it. Then she smiled. "Let me tell you about my grandmother." Elena's grandmother had been a remarkable woman. She had lived through 3 wars, raised 5 children, and buried 2 husbands. She had worked as a teacher for 40 years before retiring to a small house near the ocean on Earth. Alina had spent summers there as a child, eating homemade cookies and listening to stories. When my grandmother turned 90, Alina said, the doctors told her she had maybe a year left. Her heart was failing. There was nothing they could do. Cythera listened with intense focus. Her shifting eyes never left Elena's face. "I thought she would be devastated," Elena continued. "I thought she would be angry or scared, but she was not. She smiled and said, 'Well, I better get busy then.'" "Busy doing what?" Cythera asked. "Living." Alina smiled at the memory. She spent that last year doing everything she loved. She organized old photographs into albums for each of her grandchildren. She wrote letters for us to open on our wedding days. She planted a garden, knowing she would never see it bloom. Elena's voice grew soft. She spent hours sitting on her porch, watching the ocean. Just watching, smiling, at peace. Cythera shook her head slowly. "I do not understand." She knew she was dying. How could she be at peace? Because she was not thinking about what she was losing, Alina explained, She was thinking about what she had been given. 90 years of life. Children, grandchildren, love, experiences, memories. She felt grateful for all of it. The queen was silent for a long moment. Grateful, she repeated, as if tasting a foreign word. Over the following weeks, Alina taught Cythera everything she could about human mortality. She explained how humans measured a life, not by its length, but by its depth. A person who lived 30 years full of love and meaning had lived better than someone who lived 100 years in emptiness. She introduced the queen to human art, paintings created by artists who knew they would die but wanted to leave something beautiful behind, music composed by people who poured their souls into notes that would outlast their bodies, poetry written about loss and love and the bittersweet nature of existence. Cythera was fascinated. "Your species creates as though you are running out of time," she observed one day. Studying a painting of a sunset over mountains, we are, Alina said simply. That is why it matters. She taught Cythera about human religions. Different cultures had different beliefs about what happened after death. Some believed in heaven. Some believed in reincarnation. Some believed in nothing at all. But all of them had found ways to make peace with mortality. The belief does not matter as much as what it provides, Alina explained. Comfort, hope, a sense that death is not the end of meaning. Cythera nodded slowly. My people have no such beliefs. We see death as the enemy, the final defeat, something to be fought against with all our strength. And maybe that is why you suffer, Alina said gently. You cannot defeat death. No one can. Fighting an unwinnable war only brings pain. But the lessons were not one-sided, as Alina taught Cythera about human mortality. She learned about the queen's impossible loneliness. Cythera showed her the private galleries hidden deep in the palace, room after room filled with objects, mementos, memories, a child's toy from 3,000 years ago, written by a lover who had turned to dust. Centuries before, a crown worn by a husband who had aged and died, while Cythera remained young. Thousands of objects, millions of memories, all of them ending in loss. I kept everything, Cythera said quietly, because I was afraid of forgetting. But now, these rooms have become a museum of my grief. Every object reminds me of someone I have lost. Alina walked through the galleries in silence. She felt the weight of 4,000 years pressing down on her. All this love, all this loss, all this pain with no end in sight. She began to understand something important. Cythera was not a monster. She was not the demon that human propaganda described. She was a person, a very old, very tired, very lonely person who had made terrible mistakes because she did not know how to handle her own suffering. Why did you start the war with humanity? Alina asked one day. Cythera did not answer immediately. She stood before a window, looking out at the silver and gold city below. Because I was angry, she finally said, angry at the universe for making me this way. Angry at every species that could die when I could not. I thought, if I conquered enough worlds, if I gained enough power, maybe I would find an answer. Maybe someone would know how to free me. She turned to face Alina. Her eyes were filled with shame. I killed millions because I could not face my own pain. I destroyed civilizations because I was too cowardly to look inside myself. Her voice broke. I am not a great queen. I am a coward who has caused suffering beyond measure. Alina should have felt hatred. This creature had killed her people, destroyed human colonies, started a war that had taken everything from so many families. But looking at Cythera now, she felt something else entirely. She felt compassion. You made terrible choices, Alina said slowly. That is true, but you are trying to change now. That matters. That is what humans call redemption. Redemption, Cythera repeated. Is such a thing possible? After everything I have done. Alina stepped closer to the ancient queen. My grandmother used to say that it is never too late to become who you were meant to be, she said. You have done terrible things, but you still have time to do good things. More time than anyone else in the universe. Cythera stared at her. Something shifted in those ancient eyes. Something like hope. You are a remarkable species, she whispered. To find light even in the deepest darkness. Alina smiled. We have had a lot of practice. Not everyone in the Dominion wanted peace. High Commander Velthrex had served the Empire for 200 years. He was tall even for a Valkyrie, with dark chitin scarred from 100 battles. His eyes burned with cold blue fire. He had built his entire career on war against humanity. The war had made him powerful. He commanded the largest fleet in the Dominion. 3,000 warships answered to his voice. Generals and admirals bowed when he walked past. He was second only to the Queen herself, and now that power was slipping away. For weeks, Velthrex had watched strange things happen. Military campaigns were halted without explanation. Resources were diverted from weapons production to something called cultural studies. The Queen had stopped attending war councils. She spent all her time with the human prisoner. Something was very wrong. Velthrex began to investigate quietly. He spoke with servants who worked in the palace. He bribed guards who protected the Queen's private chambers. He gathered information piece by piece, like a hunter tracking wounded prey. What he learned made his blood boil. The Queen was being corrupted. The human was filling her mind with strange ideas, weakness, surrender, peace, words that had no place in the Valkyrie vocabulary. Velthrex knew he had to act, but he had to be careful. The Queen was immortal. She could not be killed by any weapon known to exist. He needed a different plan. He needed allies. Alina knew nothing of the danger growing in the shadows. Her days had fallen into a comfortable routine. Mornings with Cythara, teaching her about human philosophy and art. Afternoons exploring the palace gardens, talking about life and death and everything between. Evenings reading human literature together, discussing the meanings hidden in the words. Something had changed between them. Alina was not sure when it happened, but somewhere along the way, the Queen had stopped being her captor. She had become something else. A student, a companion, perhaps even a friend. It was strange. Alina had spent 11 years hating the Valkyrie. They were the enemy, the monsters who had destroyed her world, but Cythara was not what she had expected. She was curious and thoughtful. She laughed at human jokes even when she did not fully understand them. She cried at sad stories. She was a person, just a very old, very lost person trying to find her way. One afternoon, Alina was given access to a communication terminal, a gift from Scifi, a sign of trust. "You may contact your people," the Queen had said. "Tell them you are alive. Tell them things may change soon." Alina stared at the terminal for a long time. She could send a message to human intelligence. She could share everything she had learned about the Dominion. Ship positions, fleet movements, weaknesses in the defense network. She was still a soldier. This was her duty. But would it be right? Cythara was trying to change. She had already ordered her generals to halt 3 separate attacks on human colonies. She was moving toward peace. If Alina betrayed her trust now, would that destroy everything? In the end, Alina made a choice. She sent a message to Human Command, but she did not share military secrets. Instead, she shared something more valuable. Hope. Peace may be possible, she wrote. The Queen is changing. Give her time. Give her a chance. She did not know if anyone would believe her, but she had to try. Velthrex moved quickly in the shadows. He gathered allies among the military elite, admirals who feared losing their power, generals who had spent their lives fighting and knew nothing else, politicians who believed the Dominion's strength came from conquest. They met in secret, in rooms shielded from surveillance. They spoke in whispers about the future of the Empire. "The Queen has lost her mind," Velthrex told them. 4,000 years have finally broken her. She is being manipulated by a human spy. The others nodded in agreement. They had seen the signs. The halted campaigns, the peace talks, the strange behavior. "What do you propose?" asked Admiral Kethra, a female with pale green chitin and calculating eyes. Velthrex smiled coldly. "We cannot kill the Eternal Queen. Her immortality makes that impossible. But we do not need to kill her." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "We will imprison her. Lock her away in a place where no one will ever find her. And then we will rule in her name. The Empire will never know the difference. They worship a symbol, not a person." The conspirators exchanged glances. It was treason, the highest crime in the Dominion. But it was also opportunity, power beyond imagination. One by one, they agreed. The coup would happen in 3 days. Alina discovered the conspiracy by accident. She had been exploring the palace library, searching for more human books that had been captured over the years of war. The library was vast, a maze of shelves stretching in every direction. She got lost easily. That was how she found herself in a forgotten corner, hidden behind ancient scrolls, when two soldiers walked past. They did not see her, but she heard every word they spoke. 3 days, one of them said. High Commander Velthrex says we move in 3 days. And the Queen, she will be taken to the Void Prison, locked away forever. No one will ever find her. Alina pressed herself against the shelves, her heart pounding. The soldiers moved on, their voices fading. But Alina had heard enough. A coup. They were planning to overthrow Scifi. To lock her away for eternity, she ran. The Queen's chambers were quiet when Alina burst through the door. Cythera was sitting by the window, reading a book of human poetry. She looked up in surprise. Alina, what is wrong? Alina struggled to catch her breath. Conspiracy. High Commander Vel. He is planning to imprison you, to lock you away forever and rule in your name. She expected shock, fear, anger, but Cythera simply sighed. I know. Alina stared at her. You know. How can you be so calm? The Queen set down her book. Her eyes were tired but unafraid. Velthrex has been plotting against me for decades. He believes I do not see, but I see everything. She shook her head slowly. He cannot kill me. No one can. What threat does he pose? He is not trying to kill you, Alina said urgently. He is going to imprison you, use your immortality against you, lock you in the void, prison forever, while he takes your throne. For the first time, Alina saw fear flicker across Cythera's face. The void prison, she whispered. I had forgotten about that place. Cythera stood and walked to the window. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, ancient and haunted. A prison I built 3,000 years ago. For criminals, too dangerous to execute. It exists in a fold of space, cut off from the universe. No signals can escape. No ships can reach it. Anyone locked inside is truly alone. Her voice trembled. An eternity of consciousness. An eternity of isolation. No escape. No end. Just ... nothing. Forever. Alina understood now why the Queen was afraid. Death held no terror for her. But this was worse than death. This was existence without life, forever. We have to stop them, Alina said. Cythera turned to face her. Why? What do you mean, why? Why would you help me? The Queen's voice was soft, confused. I am your enemy. I have destroyed your colonies. Killed your people. Why would you risk yourself to save me? Alina stepped closer. She took the Queen's hands in her own, just as Cythera had done weeks ago. Because you are trying to change, she said firmly. Because you want to be better. Because nobody deserves to spend eternity in a cage. She met the Queen's eyes. That is something else humans believe in. Redemption. Second chances. The idea that what you do next matters more than what you did before. Cythera stared at her for a long moment. Silver tears gathered in her ancient eyes. Your species is remarkable, she whispered. Even after everything I have done, you still offer kindness. Then accept it, Alina said, and let us stop this conspiracy together. Slowly, the Queen nodded. A new fire began to burn in her eyes. Not the fire of conquest, the fire of purpose. Together, she agreed. Let us be redeemed together. The coup came 3 days later, just as Alina had warned. Velthrex moved his fleet into position around the throne world. 3,000 warships blocked out the stars. Soldiers loyal to the High Commander stormed the Spire of Eternity. They moved through the corridors like a dark tide, overwhelming the palace guards. Velthrex led the assault himself. His scarred chiton gleamed in the emergency lights. His eyes burned with ambition. After 200 years of waiting, his moment had finally arrived. Find the Queen, he commanded, and kill the human. She has poisoned enough minds already. His soldiers spread through the palace. They searched every room, every corridor, every hidden chamber. They expected to find a weakened queen hiding in fear. They were wrong. Cythera had not spent 4,000 years learning nothing. She had conquered 1,000 worlds. She had commanded armies that stretched across galaxies. She had forgotten more about warfare than Velthrex would ever know. She had simply stopped caring about such things until now, when Alina gave her something to protect, something to fight for. The ancient warrior inside her awakened. They expect me to be weak, Cythera had said during their planning. They think my time with you has made me soft. They are wrong. I have simply remembered what strength truly means. She had spent 3 days preparing. Loyalist soldiers were quietly gathered. Defense systems were secretly activated. Traps were set throughout the palace. Velthrex walked into a battle he had already lost. The throne room became a battlefield. Velthrex burst through the great doors with 100 soldiers at his back. He expected to find a frightened queen begging for mercy. Instead, he found Cythera standing tall on the steps of her throne. Alina stood beside her, and around them stood 500 loyalist soldiers, weapons raised and ready. "Welcome, High Commander," Cythera said calmly. "I have been expecting you." Velthrex froze. His soldiers hesitated behind him. This was not the plan. This was not how it was supposed to happen. "You knew," he growled. "Of course I knew." Cythera descended the steps slowly. Each movement was precise, controlled, dangerous. "I have ruled this empire for 4,000 years. Did you truly believe you could plot against me without my knowledge? Then why did you not stop me earlier?" "Because I wanted to see who would follow you." Cythera's eyes swept across the soldiers behind Velthrex. "Now I know exactly who in my empire values ambition over loyalty." Velthrex drew his weapon. It was a plasma blade, glowing red with deadly energy. "It does not matter. Your immortality is your weakness. I cannot kill you, but I can imprison you forever. The void prison awaits, my queen." He spoke the last words with mockery. With contempt, Cythera smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You speak of my immortality as a weakness," she said. "Let me show you why it is a strength." She raised her hand. The palace defense systems activated, doors sealed. Energy shields hummed to life. Velthrex's reinforcements outside suddenly found themselves locked out. "Your fleet cannot help you," Cythera continued. "Your soldiers cannot reach you. You are alone, Velthrex, just as you planned to make me." The High Commander roared and charged. The battle was brutal, but short. Velthrex was a skilled warrior. He had fought in 100 campaigns. His blade moved with deadly precision. He struck at Cythera again and again, his attacks fueled by desperation and rage. But Cythera had been fighting wars before. Velthrex's great-great-grandparents were born. She moved like water, like shadow. Every strike missed. Every attack failed. She did not even draw a weapon. She simply dodged and weaved, letting Velthrex exhaust himself. "You fight like a child," she said calmly. "All anger and no thought. Stand still and fight me." Velthrex screamed. "Why would I do that?" She caught his wrist as he swung again. With a simple twist, the plasma blade clattered to the floor. She pushed him backward. He stumbled and fell at the base of the throne. Around them, the battle had ended. Loyalist soldiers had overwhelmed the conspirators. Velthrex's followers knelt in surrender. Weapons abandoned, the coup had failed. Velthrex looked up at the queen with hatred in his eyes. "Kill me then," he spat. "I would rather die than live in your corrupted empire." Cythera looked down at him. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she turned to Alina. "What do humans do with those who betray them?" Alina thought about it. "It depends. Some are punished harshly, others are shown mercy. It depends on what serves justice best." "Justice," Cythera repeated. She turned back to Velthrex. "You wanted to imprison me forever?" Alone in the void, an eternity of suffering. Velthrex said nothing, but fear began to creep into his eyes. "I could do the same to you," Cythera continued. "It would be fitting, poetic even." She knelt down, bringing her face close to his. "But that is not who I want to be anymore." She stood and gestured to her guards. "Take him to his ship. Give him his fleet, and then escort him to the border of Dominion space." She looked down at Velthrex one final time. "You are exiled, High Commander. Leave and never return. Take those who are loyal to you and find your own path among the stars." Velthrex stared at her in disbelief. "You are letting me go." "I am giving you mercy," Cythera said. "Something you would never have given me. Perhaps one day you will understand why." The guards pulled Velthrex to his feet and dragged him away. He did not struggle. He was too shocked to resist. Alina watched him go. "Are you sure that is wise? He could rebuild. Come back, perhaps," Cythera admitted. "But killing him or imprisoning him would make me no different than I was before. I am trying to be better. That means making difficult choices." She smiled at Alina. You taught me that. 1 week later, the galaxy changed forever. Queen Cythera, the Undying, made an announcement that was broadcast across 1,000 star systems. Every species, every world, every ship heard her words. For 11 years, the Valkyrie Dominion has been at war with humanity. Today, that war ends. Alina stood beside the throne, watching history unfold. We will withdraw from all occupied human territories, Cythera continued. Prisoners will be returned. Trade routes will open, and we will begin negotiations for a lasting peace. She paused, her ancient eyes sweeping across the cameras that carried her image across the stars. I have ruled this empire for 4,000 years. In that time, I have made many mistakes. I have caused suffering beyond measure. I cannot undo what I have done, but I can choose a different path forward. Her voice grew soft but strong. A human taught me that it is never too late to change, that redemption is possible for anyone who truly seeks it. I do not know if I deserve forgiveness, but I will spend whatever time I have left trying to earn it. The broadcast ended. Silence filled the throne room. Then slowly, the loyalist soldiers began to kneel, one by one. Then in groups, then all of them, kneeling not in fear, but in respect. In hope, Alina felt tears on her cheeks. She had not expected this. She had not expected any of this. Cythera turned to her. You never did teach me how to die. Alina laughed softly. No, I taught you something better. How to live with purpose. And what about you? The queen tilted her head. What will you do now, Commander Vasquez? Alina looked out the window at the silver and gold city. Somewhere beyond those stars was Earth, her home, her family, her life. I am going home, she said. I am going to see my family. Live my short, mortal, meaningful life. She glanced at Cythera with a smile. You should try it sometime. Living, I mean, not just existing. Cythera nodded slowly. Perhaps I will. I have time. Yes. Alina reached out and squeezed the queen's hand one final time. You do use it well. 3 days later, a human transport ship left the Valkyrie. On board was Commander Alina Vasquez, the woman who had taught an immortal queen how to live. She stood at the window as the ship jumped to hyperspace. The stars stretched into lines of light. The Dominion faded behind her. Ahead lay home, family, peace, and behind her, an ancient queen watched the stars with new eyes, for the first time in 4,000 years. Cythera the Undying looked forward to tomorrow, not because she wanted to die, but because she had finally learned how to live. The end.